Q here with some troubling news for anyone with an interest in shooting. Why COFO have not said anything about this, I do not know. I've been handed the leaked government white paper outlining a proposal to introduce a new tax on ammunition used by hunters and recreational shooters. According to the document, the stated goal of this tax is not only to generate revenue, but also to contribute to a broader initiative aimed at physically shrinking ammunition over time. While the exact mechanics of how taxation would achieve this outcome remain somewhat unclear, officials have framed the proposal as part of a longer-term strategy to influence manufacturing standards and reduce overall ammunition size and impact. The proposal suggests that the tax would initially be set at 10%, with a formal review scheduled after 1 year to assess its effectiveness and to determine whether adjustments are necessary. During this review period, the government plans to evaluate economic impacts, compliance levels and any measurable changes in ammunition production or usage. At this stage, the proposed tax would apply broadly across most civilian ammunition types, including centerfire, rimfire and handgun rounds, or notably excluding military ammunition. The government has expressed confidence that the firearms community will ultimately support these measures, presenting them as beneficial for the wider public. However, the proposal is likely to prompt debate among hunters and sport shooters, as well as the industry representatives, particularly regarding fairness, effectiveness and the practical implications of attempting to regulate ammunition through taxation. As part of this review, I managed to track down some hunters and recreational shooters to get a response. Jay Terry from Wellington says, "Many hunters and recreational shooters like myself will be frustrated by the added expense. Ammunition is already a significant ongoing cost, and a 10% tax could make regular practice and hunting trips noticeably more expensive. This unfairly targets law-abiding firearms users rather than addressing actual safety concerns." G. Douglas of Otago says, "My reaction would be confusion or displeasure about the idea of using a tax to physically shrink ammunition. How do they expect to go from this to this through tax? I do not know. Anyone with a technical know-how will question how pricing measures will realistically influence cartridge size or performance, and see the explanation as vague or not grounded in how ammunition manufacturing works." W. Putin from the West Coast says, "The exclusion of military ammunition creates a double standard. I feel that civilian users are being singled out despite generally operating under strict licenses and safety requirements, leading to perceptions of unequal treatment." Firearms industry representatives, including ammunition manufacturers, importers and retailers, have responded with concern about the practical and economic impacts of the proposed tax. Many would argue that the additional 10% cost will reduce consumer demand, particularly among recreational shooters who purchase ammunition regularly for training and sport. Businesses have also warned that the policy will place pressure on smaller retailers and distributors, potentially leading to reduced sales, tighter margins and even job losses. There will likely be calls for clearer evidence supporting the policy's objectives, especially around the idea that taxation could influence physical changes in ammunition design or production. At the same time, industry stakeholders have expressed frustration over what they see as regulatory uncertainty. The one-year review period will make it difficult for companies to plan inventory, pricing strategies and long-term investments, particularly if there is a risk the tax could increase or expand further. Concerns about fairness would also surface, especially regarding the exemption of military ammunition, which may be reviewed as creating an uneven playing field. Overall, the industry will likely push for consultation, clearer technical justification and a more predictable policy framework before fully supporting or adapting to the proposed changes. Now that this white paper has been leaked, the government has put out a press release, and this is what it says. The government's perspective is that the proposal is going to be framed as a measured and forward-looking policy designed to promote public safety and responsible firearm use. Officials will argue that the 10% tax is a modest, evidence-informed starting point that allows for careful monitoring and adjustment after the one-year review. They will emphasise that the initiative is not intended to punish lawful hunters and shooters, but rather to encourage gradual change in ammunition production and usage patterns while contributing to broader safety objectives. The government will also likely highlight that most civilian users will retain access to ammunition, presenting the policy as a balanced approach that considers both public interest and the rights of the firearms community. While this white paper is not current government policy, knowing how politicians think, this proposal could garner cross-party support if brought to the House.